So I'm usually watching every minute of every Austin FC game. Occasionally, life gets in the way of that. I was at a gala last Saturday for the Portland match. It was at the point of the gala where I was able to watch most of the match on my phone, but timing was such that I had an opportunity to get to the post-match press conference in the comfort of my own home, but also because my wife was co-chair of this event and it was a big kind of draining thing. We found ourselves in the line at Whataburger about the time that David DaCosta was scoring the 89th minute goal that ultimately sealed Austin's fate for that match. And I think that it's kind of appropriate that we were at Whataburger because Whataburger is kind of the domain of when you are kind of giving up, when you were defeated. Whataburger, my theory here is that is the place where you go, right? So that is, if you are trying to eat your feelings, Whataburger are set feelings. I'm going to qualify this by saying that the gala went great and we were not depressed. So I also sometimes associate Whataburger with late night revelry, but since I don't do that a lot, this gala notwithstanding, I think of it as the sad eating place to go.
As somebody who grew up in Texas, I stay away from the moniker of native Texan because that's weird and has connotations I think a lot of people don't process as often as they should, maybe. Whataburger is, it's always there for you. You can think of it as a last resort. You can think of it as the last vestige of civilization when you're just trying to hang on. Always going to be around and there for you in your time of need. I think that you may be going a little too far because Whataburger is also, we just won the youth softball championship. Let's go to Whataburger.
It can be that.
It can be that. But sometimes one of the most important ways that fast food can be there for you is in times of adversity. And frankly, Phil, I'm worried that you've enacted a curse of sorts. No fault of your own and no intention at all. It just so happened that the planets passed in too close of proximity to one another while you happen to be in proximity to that Whataburger. And what I'm saying is that losing goal is your fault. I'm not here to do the quantum math on it. I'm not saying I can explain it, but you've got to look at the causality here. Your proximity to spicy ketchup and Whata wings lined up with when that goal happened, and we're going to try to unpack why, what happened, and how we can avoid this in the future. So just stay away from Whataburger until after the last whistle. I think is
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
people.
that's good advice. I'm gonna take that. I thought going to a gala was actually gonna work because last year I also went to the same gala. So gala
Yep.
for my daughter's school, wife's co-chair, same situation, different venue. But on the occasion of that gala, that was the rare Rigoni goal, specifically in the match at Houston. Got to see that on my phone. You're seeing a pattern here with me
Mm-hmm.
and galas and participation in galas during Austin FC games, which is to say that I am only marginally involved in the gala when there's a game going on because that is how I'm wired. So I was hoping that going to a gala would equal a road win, and now that theory is debunked. I do think I'm going to have to A/B test this Whataburger thing and maybe get into a
That's
Whataburger
dangerous.
line.
It's
I think it
dangerous.
needs to be done. I think it
I,
needs to be done.
I look. That's on you. I'm going to leave that to you. I'm not gonna try. I'm not gonna supposed to give you some advice here or something. I'm just saying
Hmm.
you're playing with the universe, and sometimes the universe doesn't like that. Here's the other theory. Could it be that the luck of the gala only affects the play of Emiliano Rigoni?
Mm,
Is it possible that he had some good fortune befall him due to your presence at a gala? That's the actual correlation.
okay. Okay. Well, I guess I'm going to have to go to a gala during a Leon game to see what happens.
Emergency podcast. Betty did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hell yeah, shut up, hell yeah, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast. We talk about all the Austin FC emergencies. We are not going to go 34-0-0. Moisés, how are you feeling about that dream dying, about specifically Mike Crignola's dream
I
dying, not
look,
ours?
I'm feeling mathematically realistic. I didn't say what I said on the last show is a shot across the bow at Mike Crignola. I take a shot across the bow at Mike Crignola on a regular basis just for fun, not for any particular
Okay.
reason or tied to any specific reasoning. He similarly holds the correct belief of how you win, loss, draw numerals. So he and I are more aligned than our disagreement about the 34-0-0 season may have someone expect. Look, we're in mathematically reasonable territory.
Hmm.
In my preseason prediction, I said something dumb will happen. Well, something dumb happened in Portland.
Yep.
I'll
Sure
look at
did.
it through that lens, and I still have made a flawless overall philosophical prediction about the season. Indeed,
Hmm.
something dumb did happen. It is Phil and the spicy ketchup of Whataburger's fault. Until we find out otherwise, and we are investigating this, and we will make sure to
Yeah.
get the crack team at the FBI on it. That
And if
you
this
know,
helps, and if this helps, I'd also forgotten my wallet in my pants. So I was also struggling to pay for the Whataburger with Apple Pay for my phone.
hold on. So you forgot your wallet in your pants, Phil. There's a new narrative
I,
emerging. Why were your
other pants.
pants? Why? Okay, yeah, but so to be
So
clear, you
I
were wearing
changed
pants.
from
Okay,
I changed, yeah, I was wearing pants. I changed from daytime pants to evening gala suit pants,
okay.
but I neglected to put all the time wallet into said evening
Okay.
pants before I left.
All right. And so you left daytime pants. I didn't expect this much material on Phil West's pants this week, but sometimes you have a Phil West pants emergency because nothing else is on fire,
Right.
including your pants. Your pants not on fire, not a liar.
Nope.
So daytime
Nope.
pants remained at home. We've got to get this accurate
Yep.
for the listeners
Yep.
because we don't
Hmm.
want them imagining the wrong thing. Daytime
Right.
pants with the wallet at home. You go to the gala.
Hmm.
See, where my mind was going was that you finish the gala and goodbye to the gala pants. It's time for the cargo shorts to return. So cargo shorts on the bottom, tux
No,
jacket and untucked tails on the top. You're
no,
running
no.
around looking like Daffy Duck or something else out of Looney Tunes. Okay, all right, Phil. I was worried that due to lack of soccer emergencies, that we were
Hmm.
finding new versions of emergencies to create or discover for ourselves. All right, Phil's pants are safe. Everything in his pants is safe. We're good. So
Maybe we should
soccer,
talk a bit about this Portland game.
soccer.
Right? So,
Yeah.
a little bit. All right. One good thing did happen to Verde all day. Our best ball team has David DaCosta on it. So we got 10 points as a result of that goal. So that's good. But obviously for Verde, but little bump in the road, we think maybe perhaps, right? So again, we're going to get in a little bit into kind of one big concern that I've got coming out of this Portland match. But on the whole, we got to see Ozuni play close to a half hour, 4 touches total in the game. I assume that will improve. Offense still needing to gel. Nico talked about that. Goal was fluky and weird. That's happened. Austin got a fluky, weird goal from Danny Pereira in the October game that kept Austin mathematically alive in the playoffs by the barest of mathematicals. So, any thoughts going away? We don't, again, when we record on Friday, heading for a Saturday morning release, we don't do a lot of kind of post-match stuff, but it's good to get an overview of where the team's at and roll that narrative into what is coming, which is of course the home match against the Rapids.
So I would say that my feeling with a few days remove is similar to what was percolating in my head during the second half as I was assessing. Okay, what did this match mean? The way that it looks, and this is in advance of the goal being scored. There should be disappointment that they did not run all over the Timbers B squad or be mixed with C squad, or at least they're not ideal overall attacking force.
Mhm.
They were not coming to the pitch with all of their pieces that they ideally would want for the second game of
Mhm.
their season right after a resounding loss at home. So I think it is reasonable to look through the lens of my something dumb will happen at one of these away games. And the dumb thing that happened was that everybody went into that game on the commentary side of things, various of our colleagues in the press going, this should be a resounding victory. This should be a decisive defeat of Portland. That's what it looks like it should be on paper. So there is some disappointment to be had from that. Not to undercut that, one of the things that I appreciated getting to watch their second match with competitive minutes of the season is that I did not have any of that clenching and puckering that I got so used to last season and the season before. Where
Sure.
did I want the goals to come? Yeah. Was it annoying that I didn't see the goals coming? Yeah. Was I disappointed by the play that I was seeing? No, not really, because Austin was threatening the goal. They were finding space. They were doing things that I was not accustomed to them doing from watching the last couple seasons of things not being ideal in a variety of different respects. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like it was a good use of minutes, despite despite the fact that they did not come away with the away win that we and so many others forecast. So I think there is reason for optimism based on the performance that we saw. It is not something where I am wondering what is Estevez doing, even though he
Hmm.
himself in the post match press conference said, "Yeah, we changed up some of the stuff that we had been working on in training this week, and this is entirely on me." I appreciate that honesty and that frankness. And to me, that explains why we didn't get the thing that I think so many of us were expecting. Maybe the priority in the long run is better for them getting Uzuni worked in, knocking off the dust with a match that they lost and that he's pissed off about losing. Doesn't seem like a guy who likes losing matches. Doesn't seem like a guy who likes only having 4 touches in a match. If there's some anger fuel baked into that we get to see played out in front of the home fans against Colorado, then I think that Portland loss was incredibly worth it because you want a goal scorer who is pissed off and ready to eat.
Yeah. So I was encouraged by the Vasquez free kick. I like your theory on Azuni. I hope that that comes to play here again. We've talked about the importance of the front three gelling. Still very early in the season. Nico's talked about that. He's working on it. It's clear he again mentioned in the Thursday press conference that Azuni is likely going to see more minutes. We don't know if it's going to be a start quite yet. So we do have a little kind of amorphous vagueness, the kind of stuff that we're used to last year about lineup things. That's fair. That's coaching. But it was we still got more information from Nico about the players and kind of his thought process and ownership than we had say last year. Not to beat that drum too much, but it's old habits die hard. It's going to be a few weeks, I think, before we get that. Yeah, I would say that Portland they had some solid players there. I would say maybe more of a B sort of squad. They had their
Mm-hmm.
A machines on the table. They had their B machines on the drawer. If you get that reference, congratulations. But any other kind of thoughts about because first half was pretty encouraging. We saw some movement towards goal. We saw again, I think we're getting a better offense that's evolving here, but it's still not necessarily showing. I do have a number that I want to throw out, but just want to see if there's any other kind of impressions before we get into delving into some data.
Not really. I think you said it, man.
Okay. As I pointed out in my article, I believe it was Tuesday, they had not yet given up a goal from open play, but they had not yet scored a goal from open play. They are on the pace to only allow 17 goals for the season, but they are only on pace to score 17 goals for the season. I am sure that's going to change, but even looking back to Coachella in the preseason, a lot of kind of 1-1 games, a lot of kind of 1-0 games. This is a team that I feel has the potential with the offensive talent they've amassed to be able to break out. And they also certainly have the capacity to have kind of a clunker of a game that can happen. We haven't seen that yet, but I've been a little surprised so far, especially kind of with SKC and Portland and kind of their makeup and what Austin was. It seemed like it was lining up to be something where they could get some routes in there, some 3-1 kind of 4-1 action. We haven't really seen that yet at all. And I'm just a little curious about when we're going to see some kind of goal explosion one way or the other, or for both teams. I don't know that maybe necessarily this is a defense that's going to do that then. That's certainly a good sign because you don't want to be last year's Revs or last year's Quakes. And, certainly when you have Brad Stuber, you're not going to be those sorts of things. But just wondering about that. Is there sort of there's not a horseshoe of sadness cautiousness either. So I'm just wondering, are we just waiting for the team to get out of first and second gear as they acclimate to each other a little bit more, and then we'll see some igniting and some moving into third and fourth gear to use that car metaphor.
I think that's really a lot of what we're looking at. And it's not going to be a process of, oh, this is going to take 2 months or 3 months or maybe even necessarily a month. One of the nice things about the relatively favorable beginning 7 matches of the season for Austin is that there is this balance of home and away fixtures that the particular opponents are going to drive some action. That it's the Colorado Rapids at home this weekend, and then LAFC away the next week, going up against a team that this club has definitely built a rivalry reputation with on the coast. That is something that, on the heels of, let's say, a home win or a home draw, is the kind of thing that could propel them to a statement making away win against LAFC, depending on how well these guys are getting worked in, these guys that are getting used to each other's rhythms. It also has given them a couple of games in advance of that LAFC game to figure out some of that stuff. And I feel like this isn't a situation of we don't need to win this, we don't need to win that. It is, that one's going to be a very interesting statement on the status of this roster in action. Because on paper, we have talked till we're verde in the mouth about it. We have read and written thousands and thousands of words on what the potential of this is. What we're seeing in these first 3 games, let's say, is how quick are these guys able to step up? How quick are these guys able to translate the reasons that they got signed to actual performance on the field? And I feel like we could see the Golazo Fest explode this weekend at home. That sure feels like a natural fit for it. And it could be that them getting into that kind of form is something that helps propel their momentum into that LAFC fixture, where even if it isn't a bunch of goals, a couple of goals away and keeping a clean sheet against LAFC, that would be a big statement of its own.
Yeah, it sure would. And Nico was talking a lot on Thursday. He had brought up the decision day match, which of course was the come from behind Austin win. He had mentioned the word chaos. So certainly there's a capability for that. And of course, Lalas Abubakar, who is kind of public enemy number one for Austin fans for various exploits during the Rapids games. He is now with Dallas. So we will see him later in the season, but we will not see him on Saturday. But certainly still potential for chaos. You could see Kevin Cabral, who is chaos wrapped up into French human form. That could be, again, he has scored against Austin. He has not scored to many fans' likings, especially Galaxy fans who kind of suffered through him in Rigoni-esque pangs of anguish during his time as a DP with the Galaxy. But certainly going to be some interesting things, I think. We'll get into a little bit with Colorado in a second, but thinking about the defense and where that's at. And again, big news out of Thursday, of course, Julio Cascante is out for about maybe 2-ish, 3-ish, maybe 4-ish on the back end weeks with what was a grade 2A hamstring. That sent me Googling. Doesn't sound like it's a lot of fun, but it also doesn't sound like it's as severe as maybe it could be, but it's not something to be taken lightly, which is weird. I thought we had seen him on Tuesday at practice in a little video, but certainly Nico said that he is out for this Saturday. And my guess is that maybe they're not going to push it with LAFC. So that means probably a Heinz Ike Spatak center back pairing and maybe Leo Vesinen appearance. Maybe he'll be able to kind of show what he can do and where his head is at after shutting it down the tail end of 24.
Big changes as compared to 2023, when a Julio Cascante going out makes you worry about the ability of the back line to be back line. It has been said by ourselves, even, Austin is pretty stacked in the back line. Do they really need all of those defenders? And here's a great example of why. You've got to have some depth because maybe Julio goes out injured, and defenders go real hard in ways that I think people make assumptions about attackers and wingers. They're the ones who are really covering a lot of ground. But you look at what Mikel Dessler does as a great example. These guys go hard, they dig in, they turn literally on a dime to get there when they've got to be, so that Brad Stuver is not leading the team in passes. That is something that shouldn't go unmentioned. It looks like the club is overstacked in defenders, but let's be realistic about what MLS injuries are like and what the fixture congestion is like. Maybe this really is a good overall load of defenders to have. Now, if it's a question of should it be these specific defenders, that's another conversation entirely. And part of what you got into in your article was looking at who might be on the way out and what is it
Right.
that they might be wanting to bring in. Look at, we'll be talking about the second team later, but they've got to be looking at getting younger, not because they don't want experience on the back line, but because they want less battle worn ankles and hamstrings. Being a defender really is something that does take a toll on your body. And when you are in the phase of one's career that Julio Cascante is, he's not just trying to put in the minutes and get the legacy completed or something. He's still very interested in playing, but
Mhm.
at a certain point, the tendons and the tears, they just don't let you.
Right. Yeah, and I'm just wondering who the break glass in case of emergency center back is this year. Last year, obviously, it was Alex Ring, and in 23, especially, it was Alex Ring a whole lot. Do we think it's Dessler? Do we think it's Bureau? Do we think we slide Galley over to one of the fullback positions if, let's say, you're down to one healthy center back, which I hope is not the case, but
Yeah,
you never know. Weird things can happen.
it would be really interesting to see because there's the tape and there are the stats and the data sheets and everything on Dubrsarski and Sabovich. And I wonder because they both have a certain amount of flexibility that is assumed about them based on what they've done. Maybe there's something to Dubrsarski
Okay.
defending centrally in a pinch because the guy is, a million feet tall. Well, he's 6'2". He's not a million feet tall.
Right. He has
But
size for a center back.
yeah,
Yeah.
he has size for a center back, and looking at him as a far back defensive midfielder in a
Okay.
pinch, maybe that's a
Yep.
possibility.
Sure.
I like that I'm not worried about them breaking that glass. It'll just be interesting when or if they have to.
Right, right. And then there's the Austin FC2 center back. I wonder if he's gonna be pulled up. Van
Um,
Ryn?
oh, Van Rijn. Yeah, the guy with a Dutch last name who speaks Spanish. Yeah, Nico Van Rijn. Not a bad shout. He is officially on a second team deal. He would have to be using the temporary agreements or get signed to
Right,
a
from call up.
supplemental
Yeah.
first team thing if they
Mhm.
wanted to if they needed to use him long term. But
Mm.
I mean, the guy goes hard. He could work in a pinch. Tony
Yeah.
Gomez, maybe. You know,
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I think that those are the two most likely ones from the second
Yeah.
team. I don't know. Maybe Bonachera. Maybe those guys have all rotated around and are very flexible defenders. I think there's some possibility there. But if they were serious about wanting to know that they had them, I'll put it this way: you know that they will get first team minutes or are being looked at that way when they suddenly get announced for having a supplemental first team contract.
Right. Or short-term agreement stuff.
Or
It's
yeah,
probably the more likely
yeah.
because
Well, I'm
yeah,
saying I'm
because
saying that
Gomez did that. Yeah.
right the short term agreement thing. Once you burn off a couple of them, if they are in a position where they're short in that position,
Yeah, yeah.
that's when you see the supplemental first team signing happen as a signal of this is how long they are expected to be thin. Not as and no offense to these guys, not a giant vote of confidence for it's his time. Well, it's his time because there's shattered glass all over the floor, my friends.
Yeah, and they do have the supplemental spots to be able to
Yeah,
do that should they need to happen. Of course, this is just one injury. This is not
yeah.
what 23 was, but 23 did start with Cascante being injured, and then all of a sudden, look where we were. All right, so the Raps are coming to town. Colorado, they were barely a playoff team last year, and then they most definitely were not a playoff team after two games against the Galaxy where they lost by a combined 9-1 aggregate score. It was not quite their year, it was definitely the Galaxy's year. That was when the Galaxy was really beginning to pick up. Ricky Puig, Joseph Paintsel, Gabriel Peck, that whole trajectory. But certainly George Mihailovic, the name that you're going to know best from that. Cole Bassett. It's a solid team. Chris Armas has been doing pretty well. Tail end of my article Thursday night. Chris Armas is back to the form coaching where he was with the Red Bulls. He was on about 1.55 PPG when he was with the Red Bulls, and then he had a pretty bad 15 game run in Toronto where he had like a zero point 0.6 PPG. It's like 210-3. It was pretty bad. And then let's pick that up to about 1.49 here in, I believe, 47 matches with the Rapids so far. Ted QD Pietro, or Ted KDP as he is called, promising midfielder, came over from DC. He is going to be out with injury, as is Sam Vines, but they have a few questionables like Maxo, their big center back, but most of who they have and who you would know and expect from that team is going to be playing, is going to be available at least for this one. So what are we feeling? I'm feeling narrow win just because I think at home, obviously, they're going to be geared towards getting wins a lot more than, I don't know, a lot more than on the road. It's
Yeah.
not quite the divide of last year, but obviously I do think the home crowd is going to help somewhat. We could be in for a draw though, because I mean, again, these teams in a way could at this point in their trajectories be pretty evenly matched, and we haven't had a regular season draw yet this season. 1-1-1 after 3 games might be kind of where we're headed, which would be inconclusive, but also not terribly good, not terribly bad. It would just be angsty enough to wonder what's going to happen in the next stage of the season.
I think that the teams are reasonably well matched enough. They're both shaking off some dust and working some stuff out. I think a draw could be in the cards totally reasonably. A home loss would be surprising to me. I was noodling around earlier. It's a matter of when we experience that special air in Q2 Stadium that Burrell referred to in that blog post about that very uniquely Austin kind of thing being what attracted him to the club in the first place. Are we going to get that on Saturday? And I don't think that I can prognosticate whether we do or not. But but just ask the question, are we going to get that? And if we get that, if we get one of those moments where for no discernibly good reason, Owen Wolf lines up to do a corner kick or Brandon Vasquez lines up a free kick and the air gets unexpectedly rich and then some crazy stuff happens, that head of steam, that kind of momentum is something that will affect the rest of the season, but will give people very much their money's worth for the second home match of 2025. And I think have a pretty solid knock-on effect for everybody coming out and generating more of that kind of energy. I think that is maybe the missing catalyst that the guys on the field need to feel. Some of them have, but a bunch of these guys have not experienced one of those moments in the stadium.
Right. Yeah, and this would definitely be a good time to do that. On the
Yeah.
other side with Colorado, so they have already gotten knocked out of CCC. They played a two-leg match against LAFC, and that kind of went as you would expect, given kind of the relative strengths of the team. They started the season with a pretty ghastly 0-0 draw against the Purina Gang,
Mm-hmm.
where I think the Purina Gang had something like a 0.17 XG or something ridiculous like that. There was not a lot going on, and then they had an off-the-rails game against our friends from Frisco last week, drawing 3-3. So they're at a similar juncture to Austin, where it's inconclusive at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and a win could definitely steer things in a good positive direction, playoff word, and a draw or a loss would be, again, not the end of the world because we're less than a tenth into the season still after Saturday's game, but certainly a little more concern with a draw or a loss than with a win, stating kind of the
Yeah.
obvious here. But I think it's interesting that they're
Yeah.
both at these unsettled, which way is it going to go kind of juncture heading into this game.
It feels to me like Colorado would benefit the most from an away win,
Mhm.
but that is a pretty high wall to climb of the energy and expectations that the people who are going to be packing the stadium on Saturday are going to have. And we both know what it's like playing against that crowd when they are that hungry for a big decisive win. The momentum related prediction that I've got is that I feel like Austin is going to find that momentum. It's going to be a multi-goal match. I feel like we're looking at a win, and it is something that does have a knock-on effect of what the next few weeks look like for Colorado as they're going to continue looking for that footing. It feels to me like Austin is just about to start getting into one of their various grooves.
Do you have a score prediction?
I'm going to go 3-0.
Okay. I'm going to say 2-1. I'm going to say it's going to be tight and tense for a while, that maybe you trade first half goals or something like that, and then
Mm-hmm.
Austin finds a goal late. So that's my guess. We shall see. But there is, by the time you're listening to this on Saturday, our Verdos friends will have already been playing a game. So Austin FC 2 starting against Colorado Rapids 2, and for some mysterious reason, a 5:30 kick. Wondering why that?
I would love to actually get some sourcing as to why that kick, because people assume that the club has some sort of say in this. the club almost certainly does not have a say in kickoff times, because I don't think that in MLS they have that kind of say. And MLS Next Pro is, you would say, an idea more than an operation. It doesn't have nearly the staffing, nearly the infrastructure as Major League Soccer itself. For whatever reason, that kickoff is what it is. I would love to get some folks on background to help us understand some of these really strange kickoff times across the season.
Mhm.
The second team has gone through some turnover, as one expects with Next Pro as a developmental league. Today we got effectively 5 hours out from kickoff confirmation of the roster going into the 2025 season. People were wondering where Aaron Cervantes went. And Aaron Cervantes, one of the two goalkeepers from last year, he was out of contract. He got signed to a 1+1. So he's there through the end of the season with an option for 2026. Okay. And we got a full 11 of academy players signed to amateur agreements, including Joe Arena, who we thought was going to Michigan and who is still going to Michigan. But being signed to an amateur agreement does not in any way interfere with his college eligibility and all that kind of stuff. So presumably he's going to play with the team through the summer, and then he'll head off to college. We've had a few new signings trickling out over the weeks of preseason, the most recent being this week, Frenchman Jules Berry, a defender, alongside another defender who we haven't gotten to see, Daniel Cheshla, whose name we know how to pronounce because, like for the first team, the club gave us pronunciation guides of the players saying their own names. So, yeah, sticking around from last season, Nico Van Rijn, who we mentioned earlier, Tony Gomez, Anthony De Anda, Diego Abarca, Jorge Alastui. He was signed in the offseason, or was he signed right toward the end of last season?
Yeah. I think it was offseason. Yeah, he's still La Masia.
That's right.
Product,
and Ervin Torres, that's Landon Cotham's. That's Landon Cotham's favorite player right there. Jimmy Farcarlin, CJ Fodre, and Micah Burton signed to official loans, which is how they do the paperwork side of first team contract players playing whenever they want with the second team. Anthony Garcia, Peter Grogan, still around, and new guys, Patrick Grichevsky, Vlad Danchutsu. Danchutsu. See, look, it's already working, Phil. I listened to it once and I already know how to pronounce the guy's name. It's like magic.
Great.
Like,
love it.
Come on, Adrian Gonzalez.
Danchutsu. And it's not Danchutsu. It's not that hard.
No, it's not that hard at all. It was never that hard as long as you had a guide. Let's see. And yeah, the names that jumped out at me on the amateur agreement guys from today were really just the guys who have already played FC2 minutes. Mason Miller, who I thought was pretty sharp. A couple times we got to see him play. He was on that list. Joa, of course, has also played some competitive minutes. All told, there's some good continuity of some young guys that might have some potential. And my mind goes back to our most recent Roto press conference, in which he is just very flatly honest about this is realistic. This is what MLS Next Pro is. And it's practically daring these teen guys and early 20s guys, okay, you're great at soccer, prove yourself. Otherwise, bye. See you later. Go somewhere else. Yeah, there's some guys that were fan favorites, some of my favorites. Bobosi Biaruhanga just signed with Oakland Roots. Congratulations to him. Other guys like Shaik Toure, not yet signed with a team, but I expect to probably get picked up somewhere. I would hope to see more of these guys getting some USL minutes. And maybe they find their way back into MLS in markets other than Austin. Yeah, it's a bit of a black box going into what I can expect out of their game against Rapids 2. It'll be interesting to see how many of these synced up weekends of second teams playing in the same city as their first teams, that there are thematic similarities due to the play styles being in common. And in a lot of cases, the rosters being more directly aligned purpose-wise, where, as we've discussed previously, Frisco is playing a bunch of their second teamers to fill out their first team roster, and we'll see how that goes for them. It's not going that bad for them so far. The thing that'll be interesting to see is once we see Rapids 2's lineup, how many guys are held over there? How many guys are still lingering on that team, where Austin definitely did a little bit of house cleaning and did a fair amount of signings in the offseason to do whatever it is that Roto Burrell thinks this team is supposed to do, which he was very not specific about, other than, the job that they're supposed to do.
Right. And then Nate Jones, Austin FC legend Nate Jones.
Oh, that's right. It's a Nate Jones Cup. It's a Nate Jones Cup this weekend.
Maybe we'll end in a PK shootout, which Roto would love.
Yeah, he would love
Let's hope
to
so.
hate. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I've seen messages from folks who were saying that they're like racing there straight from work. Hello, Leslie, and just doing whatever they can so that they can be at this unreasonably early kickoff. Which it'd be nice if it were a little cooler. Is it that they're trying to? Maybe it was about there being more daylight. Maybe they just wanted
Mm,
more daylight for the game, and they didn't care the fact that the stands are going to be mostly empty until toward the end of the game when people can actually get through
gotcha, gotcha.
Austin's South
Yep.
by Southwest weekend one traffic.
Yeah. And that brings us to one kind of public service announcement that we should
Yeah.
do before we wrap up here. It's Spring Forward weekend, one of my least favorite weekends of the year. I hate losing an hour of sleep. That is what we are doing on Sunday. Remember to turn your clocks forward either before you go to bed Saturday night or just do it in the morning. It'll change automatically on your phone, which is probably the first thing you're going to look at. Let's be real. And then obviously you got to change the clocks in your car, and on your microwave, and on your oven, and all the other places. And it's you only do it twice a year, so it's hard to remember. At least it is for me. Like I have to re-educate myself on something that, again, I'm going to not keep in my memory how to do it until it rolls around again in another 6 months, and I have to relearn it all over again, and then promptly forget it.
Yeah. We should stay on standard time year round. I'll say it. I've said it. There. Done. That's
Okay.
what we should do. That's what we should do.
Yeah, I think that's probably
And
the move, but we'll
enough of
see. I
this
mean,
living 8 months out of the year wrong. We have been. That's it. I'm on the soapbox, Phil. You can't stop me. That we live 2/3 of our year incorrectly ruins our sleep clocks. It messes with our minds. It really does have knock-on effects that are more than just basic inconvenience. It's nuts. It's stupid. We shouldn't do it.
okay. There we go. All right. So that is where we have landed. But obviously, as you're listening this, hopefully Saturday morning, we will see you at Q2 Stadium at 7:30 or thereabouts, maybe a little bit earlier. Maybe you'll get there. I think there's a giveaway of some sort.
Yeah,
Um,
a SeatGeek branded scarf. If you remember,
yeah.
if you
Okay.
remember Austin fan favorite Q2 Stadium scarf, it is the exact same scarf with a SeatGeek logo instead of a Q2 logo.
If you want to rep
Spoilers.
SeatGeek, and if you need another scarf in your life, which I'm sure you probably have an abundance of scarves already if you are listening to the show.
Okay, there is one scarf. This came up while discussing scarves in the Las Vegas Slack. There's
Oh,
one
yeah.
scarf that I'm missing because at the big season pass, season kickoff event, it's a real dumb scarf. It's got the MLS logo and the Apple TV
Yep.
logo on it, and it's black and white.
Hmm.
And I had
Yep.
one until I went out drinking with Austin artist, Puerto Rican legend Fabian Rey. And I don't know what happened to the scarf after that, but I had it when I walked into downtown with him, and then it was gone. So if anybody has one of those that they don't want, hit me up. Find me. I will gladly take it and put it in a drawer and just remember that I have it. That's my one ask to the listener base.
Okay. So when you were drinking and then you lost the scarf and you realized the scarf was gone from your life, potentially forever, did you then run to Whataburger? Was that your shoulder to cry on?
I did not. I did not. I ran to another warehouse district bar
Okay.
and drank some more tequila.
And then Whataburger.
No, I know. Actually,
Okay.
probably P. Terry's.
Okay.
Actually, yeah.
That's
Now that I think of it,
that's also the move. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I think it was heading over to P. Terry's, and calorizing my alcohol away.
Right. But still a hope giving burger, not
A
the
hope giving burger, not
not
what a
the
wings of sadness.
not the I'm gonna wallow for the next 12 to 16 hours in a very full state.
Look, you did it to yourself, man. I can't be held
Yeah, yeah.
responsible.
Yeah, we actually shared a burger, so by the way. So
Okay,
it
all
was,
right, all right.
it was reasonable. It was not like I'm gonna have this whole like 1,200 calorie thing to myself. So, all right. So I guess not necessarily maybe a good place to leave it, but that is
Well,
a place to leave it.
Choripan's beer water 3 points. Let's see it this weekend.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah, this might be the week to try La Barbecue. We shall see what happens. And then remember, next week's game also is a matinee game. We'll have some details about what Austin fans are planning for that. But in the meantime, just know that's going to be early. That's, I believe, a 2:45 kick, which is a highly unusual time. Make sure that you are trying to remember that now. And of course, that is going to be in daylight savings time now. It's not going to be in standard time. It's going to be in what Moisés refers to as the bad time.
The bad time. Bad time. The bad months.
All right. Have a good time while you still can, cling on to that standard time. And we'll see you at the stadium and we will catch you next week.
That is like the worst thing I've ever heard in the history of the 7 years that I've been on this planet.